There's a phase in consulting that determines whether you will scale in a clean and easy way, or you will scale burnout and wish you were working in a 9 to 5. And this has to do with understanding what is it I need to focus on, and how and where do I allocate more time when it comes to delivery, sales, operations, admin, strategic thinking, learning, and stuff like that. And I get asked this a lot of like, well, how much time should I be delivering? How much time should I be focusing on sales? How much time should I be focusing on the other things? And this is a great question. But before I actually give you the answer, I need to explain something that's like actually like crucial. The ratio really depends on where you are in your business and what is your current bottleneck. Most people just throw like just this numbers like 60% delivery, 30% sales, 10% learning, and that's great. That kind of ratio 60 30 10 is the very very popular one, and it works for a situation or a phase where you're like mature and stable. But if you're not there yet, that ratio will actually hurt you and will not allow you to scale properly, or might actually completely stop you from scaling. So let me walk you through this properly, and I'm going to show you the real progression, right? So bear with me because I'll be throwing out some numbers and percentages here as well. And there's actually a very critical transition in between phase one and phase two that most people miss completely. And this is where productization actually happens, and you know that I talk about a lot about productization and how this is the way to scale your business. So let's go through the phases. So phase number one is where your pipeline, your sales suck. Like you don't have a stable income of new clients. You don't have a stable flow of new leads and things like that. So in this case, the time allocation is, I'm just going to drop the numbers first, and I'll explain in just a second what it means. 45% on sales, 45% on delivery, and 10% on admin. And so, um, you know, phase one, this is where you are. This is where you are when it comes to having the pipeline that's either empty or very inconsistent, so it has ups and downs. Maybe you have 3 4 clients, and again, that might be different depending on how you structure your business right now, but let's just call it 3 4 clients. But they're not consistent, right? It's just like come and go, typical feast and famine. You're doing great work when it comes to delivery, but you're just not sure when and where the next client is coming from, right? So that's a obviously massive problem. And so in this phase, again, the time allocation is 45% on sales, 45% on delivery, and 10% on admin, or the rest, right? And let me explain why. First of all, sales, 45%, that's a big chunk, because when your pipeline is weak, nothing else matters, right? You can't be productizing what you don't have. You can't be systematizing an empty calendar, right? So your job right now is to fill the pipeline, and the sales is your job, is the job, right? So second of all, delivery is 45%. The reason why is that here's the important kind of thing to understand. You're at 3 4 clients, and each of those is taking, let's say, 15% of your time, right? And so that adds up to to 45%. The reason why it's so heavy on delivery is because everything that you do most likely is is custom, it's one-on-one, it's bespoke, right? So every project, you start from scratch. Every client needs this different thing. You reinvent the wheel all the time. So 3 clients times 50%, whatever the percentage number is, equals the 45%. And it's very often that phase, you know, is heavy on delivery, not because you want to, not because you have a lot of clients, but because of how your business is set up, because it's all custom, right? And so, third, kind of piece is the 10% of admin on the, invoices and proposals and whatever, right? So the goal of phase one is very simple. You have to kind of achieve the goal, the goal of getting to 3 4 consistent clients, and whatever that consistency, that cycle is for you. And that's it. Not 10 clients, not 50,000 per month, not 150,000 per month, just stability, stable, consistent revenue and foundation that gives you the peace of mind and ease, and like understanding, like I am not stressed because I know where the clients are coming from, right? So once you hit that, once you have those 3 4 clients, whatever the number is for you, and revenue feels stable, this is where something really important needs to happen. This is when um, this is where most people actually make a mistake, right? So let's talk about the transition into the productizing phase. And so here's what happens next. Most consultants think that now I have 3, 4 clients. Now let me keep the gas on sales and get to 6, 7 clients. And that's a mistake. I know that you want to do that because you want to have more revenue, you want to feel successful, you want all these things. But instead, I need you to make a strategic choice. You deliberately slow down on sales. Look at kind of now in this case, what we're trying to do, we're trying to lower your time allocation on sales from 45% that we had previously, because we wanted to have a consistent flow of clients and leads, to 25%. So we were slowing down by 20%, right? That frees up those 20% of our time, and we take that 20% of additional time and invest in something critical at this point. We invest this into productizing how we deliver. So now delivery stays still at the same 45% because you still have the same number of clients. You're not adding clients yet. You're just keeping things, you're keeping prospecting so that you get clients in the future. You're not putting too much pressure on sales. But the difference is that you are productizing while you deliver to the existing clients. And let me be more specific about what that means. How do we use those 20%? So you're the 20% means you're like, you're documenting your work as you go. You're creating templates from this week's works for a client. You're building SOPs in real time. You did something, you create an SOP, right? You're recording your frameworks, your processes as you go, as they happen. You are tightening your scope boundaries. So if you realize like, oh shit, I did something that probably shouldn't in the future, note that down so you don't make that mistake in the future, right? You're basically turning your custom work into a system, right? And so you're not going off and building some separate productized offers in isolation. You're systematizing the work you're already doing anyway with those 3, 4 clients, right? And so you're working with those 3, 4 clients, but every time you do something, you're asking, how do I make this repeatable? How do I template this? How do I turn this into a process? Right? So that the next time things are easier. So if you're creating a strategy deck for a client, you're also creating the template for the strategy deck. If you're running a discovery call, you're also documenting, the process for discovery calls. Like, what are the questions that you're asking? If you're delivering a report, you're building the framework for reports, right? So this is the investment phase where um, you're taking the 20% from the sales. You're saying, I'm going to slow down on new client acquisition so I can build the system that will let me scale in the next phase without increasing delivery time. And that's crucial, right? This feels super, super scary because you have to, again, let go. You literally say no to potential clients. You're turning down opportunities in business. But this is critical. This is a critical work that needs to happen, and most people skip this. And because they skip that, they always go this path of scaling and growth. That means more clients, more time, and that means hiring, and that takes you on on the wrong path. And I'll have another video exactly about like the comparison of 2 different models, the traditional consulting scaling approach and this productized version. So watch that as well, right? But so most people skip that and go the path of traditional scaling. What I'm saying is like, slow down here, give yourself 2-3 months of time. Because you slow down sales, you're not adding new clients. Your client count stays at 3-4 clients, which means delivery stays at the same kind of level of 45%. So that feels a little bit weird. Like, hold on a minute, I'm delivering at the same amount of time, right? I'm spending the same amount of time on delivery. I'm slowing down on sales. Like, this feels just very uncomfortable, right? But because you're slowed down on everything, you're not adding more people to, something, you don't have a system yet because you're building the systems. You're not adding more clients. You're not overwhelmed. You're not anxious. Um, you have time to actually do and focus on productizing. At the same time, you have the time to, deliver to your clients in a highly quality, like with high quality, right? The goal of this transition phase is to build a system that from the work that you're doing anyway, right? And that system will help you grow and scale in the next phase without focusing on delivery that much, right? You're building a system right now, not someday, not like, because you know how it is. Most people go like, oh, we're going to systematize next time. Like, we're so busy now with delivery, we cannot do this right now. We cannot do SOP right now. We'll do it later, right? But when you do it as you go, this is not a side project. This is not a side hustle. This is not something for later. It's right now as part of your delivery process, right? And this typically takes 2-3 months. And when it's done, you then move into phase two, and this is where the real leverage shows up and happens, which is the productized growth, right? So in this case, what happens is actually we ramp up the sales to around 30-35%. And we can do that because our delivery time goes down. It goes down to 30-35% because from 45%, because in the previous transition phase, we have created systems. So now when we have clients, when we land new clients, now we don't have to spend as much time delivering for those clients. So we get more clients, we ramped up the sales, we spend less time on delivery. And still admin and stuff like that happens, right? So this is when really things get super interesting, right? So you've already spent 2-3 months previously in the transition period productizing, right? So you have the templates, you have the SOPs, you have the systems, you have the process, and this is where you're growing again. This is why we're ramping up the sales to 30%, right? You're actively adding new clients to your portfolio. You go from 3-4 clients to 6-7 clients over the next few months. But again, your delivery time actually drops. You get more clients, but your delivery time that you spend with all those new clients drops, right? And so how that and it drops because obviously you now have the systems and the productized approach to everything, right? So um, now let's say instead of each client taking you 15% of your time, now each client takes you 5% of your time. So now in the 45% delivery time that you had in the past, which was 3 clients, all of a sudden you can have 7, 8, 9 clients at the same with the same allocation of your time, right? So kind of to sum up where we are up to this point, in phase one, each client was 15%. You were doing custom work. In phase two, each client takes 5% because you're running a system that's more productized, right? So when a new client comes in, they don't get the custom work that you used to do, right? They get your process and the systems that you have created, and they're proven, which is super important. So when you do the custom work, it's bad for you, and it's really bad for the client as well, because if every time you reinvent the wheel when it comes to like how you deliver and what the outcome will be, it's not really a repeatable approach when it comes to quality and the outcomes that the client is getting. But when you have a system that allows you to repeatedly deliver a certain level of quality of the output of the results for a client, then that is good for a client, because it worked 7 times in the past, and this is exactly the same process you're going to apply to this client, so it's going to work this time as well, because you have the proven track record of how it works, right? So um, they get your proven process, they get your templates, they get your framework, they get your methodologies, they get your thinking. It's all running through playbooks. And I'm not saying this is like a do-it-yourself kind of approach. I'm just saying when I say they get it, that's what you deliver. You deliver through that, right? And so even though you went from 4 clients to 7 clients, your delivery time actually went down. So you make more money per hour on hourly basis if you calculate it that way, right? So, and that is why productization actually works. This is where productization pays off. Now, what is important here is that you're not slowing down on the productizing piece, right? So, because we increased the sales by 5%, our delivery came down by 10-15%. We keep productization, work on productization at 25% still. It's still a big chunk. And why? Well, because you're not done. You're not refining the system. You're not fully efficient yet, right? every week you're asking yourself, okay, well, what can I make tighter? Like, what can I automate? What can I delete? What can I delegate from the system? Like, how can I make things more efficient? Now that you have more clients, you can also see more gaps, more flaws, more opportunities to improve, right? So you're constantly improving this kind of machine, right? And so now you're trying to make each client be 4% of your time instead of 5, right? And then 3%. You constantly are optimizing how you can deliver things, right? Um, admin stays around the same time, at the same level for now, but you're actively working on, eliminating it through your productizing work. Again, automating intake, standardizing contracts, invoices, all of that. Proposals, blah blah blah. The goal of this phase is to scale your client count while keeping delivery efficient. And you are proving in this and testing and proving that the system works. You're keep refining it. That's why we keep 25% of productization kind of focus. You're getting really, really good at running it, right? And this phase takes, typically 6 to 9 months. And when you're consistently at 6, 7 clients and delivery feels really smooth, you're ready for phase 3. And the first phase 3 is really leveraged and optimized kind of time. So this is what it looks like when everything is working properly. You are now at 10, 12 clients. Delivery, it's probably at around 30% of your time. So we went from 45% in the phase 1, where everything was custom, you were overwhelmed, with 3, 4 clients, to 3x of that number. And we're spending 30% of our time, a fraction of what it was in the beginning, right? So let that sink in, right? It's just you're working, you went from 3 clients and 45% of time to 10, 12 clients at 30% of your time. Each client now is about 3% of your time. The system is refined, it's smooth, it's not like exactly what's going to happen, when, how to deliver, what is the process, what is the flow. uh, your sales process is also optimized because you get consistent leads, you consistently know how to deliver. um, you know uh, same discovery, same intake, same deliverables, same timeline. You're running a business, you're running a machine, and that is very important. Now, let's talk about the rest of your time. So sales is 25%. It actually went down a bit from phase 2, and here's why. Because at this point, your conversion is really high as well. Your offer is crystal clear because it's a productized offer. You have optimized your sales as well. You're not doing custom proposals. Your positioning is dialed in. You need less time to generate the same or the same results when it comes to sales, right? And when it comes to results for clients. So you're spending 25% of your time on systems and operations at this point. This is a continuous improvement. This is something you have to continuously focus on, like, when it comes to improvement, because you're never done refining. Market conditions change, clients change, and stuff like that. So every quarter, you're finding ways to make delivery more efficient and even tighter. And you're automating, you're delegating more, you're trying to, remove the certain elements of your work that are not necessary anymore, right? um, and here's a big unlock. Because of all these changes, all of a sudden you have around 20% of your time saved. So you're getting more clients in an easier way. Your conversion rates go up, your delivery time goes down, even though you keep getting more clients. You keep refining, so you're making the process, the system, way more efficient every quarter. So you're saving around 15-20% of your time. And this time, that 20%, you can dedicate that to strategy and thinking time. And this is the time you didn't have in phase 1 or phase 2 because you were just too busy surviving, right? Now you can think about, what's my content strategy? How do I evolve my positioning? What's the next offer? How do I scale this even further? What are the different angles for marketing and sales? Like, how now you can work on the business and not in the business. This is the strategic work that actually moves your business forward and moves the needle in it. and not just from an operational perspective, but in terms of direction. This is what I want to build. This is my goal. This is my vision, right? So now you finally have the time to think and work on the business, right? So um, when it comes to admin, typically like before, admin was around 10%. Now it's practically gone, maybe 5%, because everything is working way smoother. You don't have to chase anything. You don't have to put down the fires. Um, you've automated a lot of things. You've standardized contracts, proposals, invoicing, all that stuff. It's just like uh, adjusted and tweaked so that it's working flawlessly. And so the result of this phase is 10, 12 clients. Revenues that I'm seeing is around 60-80% in profit margins. Crazy. So you go from 10, 15, 30% to 80%. From being overwhelmed to being super relaxed in terms of like how you work and the work that you deliver. Relax on sales calls if you still do them, right? So and the cool thing is that you still do the work, deliver the work that you love, right? So if you went down the rabbit hole of like more clients means more time, and more time means I need to hire someone, all of a sudden, let's say you hire one or two people, you no longer work as a consultant. You work as a manager and a babysitter, and very often you have to jump in because someone messed something up. So if you love consulting, if you really like to execute for clients and with clients, and if you want them to kind of tap into your zone of genius, this is the way to go, because this allows you to stay focused on the client work while the work actually doesn't drag you down. That work doesn't feel heavy because you're not overwhelmed by 10 clients and working 60 hours weeks. Actually, the more clients you have, the less time typically you spend per client, because the whole machine is being refined all the time. And that's not even taking into account the fact that the best model when it comes to productization is a group consulting model, and that's not even taking that into account. If you were looking at it from a group consulting perspective, then your delivery time would stay fixed no matter how many clients you work with, and that's just mind-blowing. There's another video on it, by the way, right? So um, at this point, you are a consultant with a massive leverage, and that leverage is not called labor. That leverage is called a system. So let me show you the complete progression, uh, because again, I want you to see how it flows, right? So again, phase one was 3-4 clients. Let's throw some revenue numbers: 150, 200K per client, not per client, like per year, 50K per client, let's say. Again, those numbers, apply the numbers that you're working with yourself in your business. Everything is custom. Um, your focus is to fill the pipeline, right? That's phase number one, right? Sales is the job. This takes typically 2 or 3 months to tweak, right? Then comes the transition phase between phase one and phase two. Very, very important, because if you stay on this phase and you keep on adding and focusing on sales, you will end up in that kind of a challenging situation where again, more clients means more time, and you either stop, raise your prices, or stop, raise your prices, and try to hire someone, right? So this is where the transition phase is important. This is the most important, crucial step that most people actually skip. You slow down on sales, you drop your allocation of your time to 25%, you keep the same 3-4 clients constantly coming in. That's perfect. You invest 20% of your time in productizing, documenting, standardizing, templating everything. But you focus on standardizing the things that you already do. And this is the investment phase, right? So it's gonna feel a little bit weird. Takes 2 to 3 months. So it's just 2 to 3 months of you slowing down. But then again, so your kind of growth will look like this. So you go from feast and famine typically, right? Where you go like lots of sales, uh, no sales because I need to deliver, and then I finish delivering. Now I need to go through sales. So you go from this to like stable 3-4 clients all the time, right? Because that's the phase one where you put a lot of effort into sales, but it's stable, right? And then so kind of it plateaus a little bit while you productize, and then it goes up again, because when you productize, when you go to phase two, you ramp up the sales again, right? So which is fantastic. And at the same time, so you go from 4 to 7 clients, for example, but delivery drops, right, to 35%, because the system you have built is working. So each client takes less time. You continue, refining with the 25% of your time on productizing. This is another 6 to 9 months. So this is a longer phase. So the first, phase with transition to 3 months. This is 6 to 9 months. And then phase three is where you're at, 10, 12 clients. Delivery is down again to 30%. And you finally have 20% for pure strategic work, which is massively impacting your business, massive leverage. The machine is working very, very well. So when it comes to, like, notice what happens with your delivery times. It goes from 45, stays at 45, 35, 30%. But at the same time, so your delivery goes down, but at the same time your revenue goes up and your profitability goes up as well, right? Which is crazy. So delivery time keeps dropping even as client count goes up. So that's obviously not magic. That's just how productization works, right? So the transition phase, that's where the work actually happens, and that's where you have to make a decision which direction you want to go. And you can't skip it. If you skip it again, you're gonna fall into the same trap, right? So here's the thing most people miss. Like, these percentages, 45, 20, whatever, are about time allocation and not about client capacity. So when I say delivery drops from 45 to 35 to 30%, people think, oh, you're working with fewer clients, but you're working with more clients. You're just doing it in a more efficient way, right? So in phase one, each client takes 15%. In phase two, each client takes 5%. Phase three, 3%, and so on and so forth, right? So it's, and what's crazy about this is that you keep the same quality of work or even higher, because you're repetitive. You have standardized approach, same frameworks, same methodologies that that are working, right? So um, what is super important is that you can't jump straight to phase three. You can't just decide one day that you're going to serve 10 clients in 30% of your time. You have to build the system first. You have to refine it as you go. That's what the transition phase is for, right? This is where you have to recognize that this is what's happening. That's why you slow down with sales. That's why you invest that time into productizing, and you're really building a foundation for the phase two and the phase three. Without this, is really impossible, right? So if you skip that transition, if you just try to keep growing at 45%, sales, while also trying to productize on the side, it just won't work, right? So something has to give. You just stay stuck at doing custom work, right? So um, what I would like you to think about now is to, first of all, figure out which phase you're in right now, to be able to apply whatever we just said, right? So are you in phase one with a fragile pipeline? If you are, then obviously you know what to do, right? Are you ready for the transition phase where you productize? Are you in phase two or phase three? You have to be honest about this. Like, you can't, like, business loves honesty, and a lot of people are just lying to themselves about what they are and who they what is the situation, and they just want to skip ahead and take a shortcut. This video is the shortcut, but you can't shortcut the actual implementation of it, right? So you have to meet yourself where you are, and so that's number one. Number two, you have to, like, apply that phase's time allocation. So first of all, you identify where you are. Second of all, you apply that time allocation, lock it for 90 days. 2-3 months is where typically we have to be focused on from that perspective. Don't change it weekly, because that's not gonna work. Don't adjust it every single time you feel busy or things are bumpy. Commit to it and let it work. Like, it just takes time to get things organized, right? And the third thing is that every Friday, ask yourself the question of, like, Did my time this week move me forward to the next phase, or did I just stay busy? Like again, you have to be honest with yourself, right? If you're working with me, you know that our calls are full of accountability and calling out your bullshit. If you're not working with me or another coach, you have to do it for yourself. So ask yourself that question, right? If you're in phase one and you didn't do any sales, you're not moving forward. If you're in the transition phase and you didn't do any productizing, you're just wasting time. What the hell are you doing, right? If you're in phase two and your delivering is still taking 45%, your system is not refined well enough yet, right? And your calendar will tell you the truth if you let it. So again, you have to be very, very honest with yourself, right? Um, so, um, a fourth thing I wanted to mention is that this is I think the most important one is that when you hit 3 4 stable clients, you have to stop growing and productize. Too many clients come to me with duct tape businesses because they grew and scaled too fast, and that brings a lot of issues, right? So I know this is counterintuitive. I know this is uncomfortable. I know you want to keep the gas on sales, but you have to slow down to speed up. That's what it is. You have to build the system before you scale. When you see the glimpse of like, this can get somewhere, I could scale this if I only spend more time on sales, this is the moment where you have to actually slow down and build the thing. Not before, because before you don't have the traction. You don't know that does this even have legs. But as soon as you do, you have to then, as soon as you have that traction, as you know, like, okay, I am now getting stable 3 4 clients, I can't be adding more gas to the fire. This is where you have to go and slow down and productize, right? So that's where that transition phase, that 2 3 months where sales drops to 25% and you invest 20% in productizing, that's the work that changes everything. This is where you have to focus on. But because if you skip it, you'll stay in custom delivery mode forever. Like, you keep adding clients, but then it's custom, it's not optimized, it's not efficient, and you're scaling an unoptimized business, which makes zero sense, because then you have to hire more people. But if you hire more people, you're throwing more hands on in an inefficient business, right? So you're going to hit 6 7 clients, you'll be completely overwhelmed. You hire people to do it, they will not know what to do because there's no repeatable process. You will start to kind of being dragged into delivery, and that means overtime, blah blah blah. It's just a mess, and just don't do that. Do the transition work, build a system, and then scale. That's how it works, right? So um, one other thing, I guess, what is important is that time allocation is a diagnostic. It's more of a diagnostic than it is, and it's not aspirational. So you don't earn the phase 3 schedule by wanting it. You build into it by doing the work, in each phase, right? So phase 1, fill the pipeline. Transition, build the system. Phase 2, prove the system works, improve the system, make it more efficient. Phase 3, leverage the system to scale, right? So each phase builds on top of the last one, right? So you can't skip steps at this point. And I guess the most critical phase, the one that most people completely miss, is that transition phase, right? Because everyone thinks they just need to put more um, on sales, and that's where you deliberately slow down. You can build the leverage that makes the scale in phase 3 possible, but that's the foundational work, right? So most consultants don't have actually the time management problem. That's very common question that I'm getting. They do have a business model problem. They do have a delivery model problem. They're trying to optimize their calendar while building the wrong thing. They're trying to answer the wrong question. They're working on the wrong problem. And so fix the model first, do the transition work, protect that 20% productization time that you need in the transition phase, and trust that the leverage really, really will show up. It takes some time. It takes obviously some effort. It takes some uncomfortable, counterintuitive work as well. But that's how you scale without hiring. You might need a VA or two, here and there, but it's not necessary, right? That's how you keep your freedom. That's how you build a consulting practice that works for you instead of tapping you, or trapping you, or keeping you inside of the business. allows you to work on the business because you have built it in a smart and an efficient way, right? So that's the answer to the question of like, how do I scale the business? I guess it's not just percentages, but kind of strategy behind them and thinking about what you need to focus on at what stage, so that it makes sense.